The one with the home study is unsurprisingly a great episode of Friends. I do think season 10 might be the strongest season. This is the 7th episode of season 10. It's directed by Kevin Bryant, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. In fact, that's not true. I'm not going to go through it chronologically. I will talk about each part of the narrative in turn. So I'll talk about Ross and Rachel, and then Phoebe and Mike, and then I think Monica, Chandler, and Joey. And interestingly, pretty much everybody had an equal weight to play in this episode. Usually there's at least one character who doesn't really have that much to do, but in general, pretty evenly weighted. So Ross is going to the park with Emma, going to the playground, and Rachel says no. And this is because when she was a child, she got her hair caught in the swing and she had to be cut out. She had to have her hair cut, which was, for Rachel, obviously very traumatizing. But Ross says, come with us, you'll see it's safe. So Rachel, to her credit, despite her fear, she does agree. And it's worth remembering that Emma has like no hair. Getting her hair cut in the swing would be really challenging. It would be quite an achievement. And it's a really sweet scene where we see Emma in the swing. She's laughing. Rachel seems a bit more relaxed. Ross is obviously having a great time, and it's a really lovely family moment. And then a kid on the next swing kicks Ross and he falls, and it's funny. And you do need to be careful when you're in a play park. Yes, I blame the child. The child clearly was aiming for Ross, but at the same time he was walking in front of a child on a swing. So maybe the swings are dangerous after all, but not necessarily in the way Rachel feared. And this part of the narrative ends with Rachel forcing Ross to confront his fears by making him hold a spider. And I feel like this is implied, but maybe it's just my reading of the situation. Rachel has her hands cupped around this alleged spider and passes it to Ross. Ross never looks, we never see. And it's my reading of the scene that there was never a spider there at all. And I think this is mostly because, well, one, we didn't see it, but also because Ross remarks that he doesn't even feel the spider anymore. That's how relaxed he is. And I think that implied that there never was a spider there at all, but maybe that's just my interpretation. And it just goes chaotic. Rachel's on the swing, Ross gets kicked again, and yeah, it's good fun. And it's nice to face your fears. And ultimately, Emma was absolutely fine. We then come to Phoebe and Mike, and the episode actually starts with them discussing wedding plans with Ross and Chandler, and we have some great dialogue here. They're in Central Park, and Phoebe suggests that actually they're just going to give the money that they would spend on the wedding to charity and get married at City Hall, which I think is an amazing idea. I'm very much anti-giant wedding just for the sake of a giant wedding. If you're a multimillionaire and it barely puts a dent in your finances, go for it. But I feel like so many people feel like they need to go into debt and drain their savings just to have these huge weddings, because if they don't, people will judge them. And this is what we see later on with Monica. Monica was clearly judging Phoebe for this decision to not have a giant wedding, which I thought was absolutely disgusting. And still in Central Park, Chandler says to Ross, maybe you could do that the next time you get married. And Ross's response was great, because he says to Chandler, no, the next time it's going to be Hawaii at sunset, but maybe the time after that. I love that he's such a good sport about it. He even realizes that he's maybe a little bit too addicted to getting married at this point, and I just thought it was a really great exchange. And Phoebe and Mike talk about this, and they go down to donate the money. They were going to do it anonymously, but Phoebe realizes she could get some credit for it, and they give their names, and they tell Monica what happened, and she said she was crazy to give up the wedding money. And I honestly hate that side of Monica. I really think that's disgusting. How dare she call somebody crazy for thinking of somebody other than herself? And unfortunately, Monica's words had an effect on Phoebe, and she also wears Monica's veil, and she realizes she wants the wedding, and the way to do this is not to save up and wait a little bit longer. It's to go and get the money back, which is honestly disgusting. And I don't like this side of Phoebe either. And I don't think this is Phoebe. I think she was just caught up in the moment, maybe worrying a bit about what Monica was saying. And she and Mike go down, and to be fair, she gives a good speech getting the money back, because as she said, she didn't have anything growing up. She never went to prom. She's never been to these big events. She's never been in a positive way, the big centre of attention, the star of the show, the party guest. She's never had that opportunity, and that's why she wants the wedding. And in that regard, I'm a little bit more in line with her thinking. That's not what Monica was getting at, but I can understand that for once in her life, she wants to feel fabulous. And if having a big wedding will make her feel like she finally has something that she can remember positively, then I'm not against that. But I still am against getting the money back from the children. And thankfully, Phoebe does realise this. And she's talking with Mike and she says, I had nothing growing up, just like the kids I took the money from. And they go to get the money back, but the charity clerk, who is played by Matt Winston, refuses to accept their money again because clearly it's just not worth the hassle. And yeah, he was denying a donation, but at the same time, it probably wasn't worth the hassle. And I can't imagine the donation would be that much. Even large charitable donations don't tend to go that far because obviously there are many children in need and the money has to be spread quite thinly. But in general, I'm sure they'd accept a donation of any size. But when it comes to Phoebe and Mike, it's just not worth it. So I think there's a lot of good food for thought there. I think, yes, Phoebe made some good points, but I'm glad that ultimately she came to her senses. And, well, they didn't take the donations. So I guess for Phoebe and Mike, it was a pointless way to spend the day. And then we come to Monica and Chandler and Joey as well. The adoption social worker is coming over to the apartment to view their living space, and she arrives. She's called Laura. She's played by Maria Pitillo, and she recognises the building, and we get a tiny bit of suspense for maybe a few minutes, and then we realise she went on a date with Joey. And Monica and Chandler know what Joey is like, so immediately they say they know it's Joey, they know who Joey is, but they're not friends with him. And then Joey arrives at the door and they start calling him Bert and pretending it's just a crazy person who roams the halls. That's not what you want to say when a social worker is visiting you. And Joey, for some reason, thinks Bert is their code word for I need help. And the scene is very funny because just in the background, we see Joey climbing up the fire escape. And he has a bat in his hand. And to his credit, he might have misread the situation, but he leapt to help them. Clearly without thought. He clearly acted without thinking anything through. But that's such a lovely thing. That he thought his friends are in danger. I'm going to climb up the fire escape. I thought it was really, really lovely. And then things take an interesting turn. He's in the room with Chandler and, well, just Chandler at this point. And their facial expressions when Monica and Laura come out from the other room are just absolutely fabulous. And very quick thinking. Joey turns it around. And he asks why Laura didn't call him. And says all of these things about, of course he would call her back. She's beautiful. There's no reason why he wouldn't. And she kind of believes him. And it was a bit sick and twisted and manipulative, but he managed to save the situation for himself or for the sake of Monica and Chandler. Not really sure. I'd say maybe more so for his own sake, but it worked. And at the end, Laura gives them a great report, and they're officially on the list, just waiting for a baby. And I think I mentioned this before, but I'm really pleased with the pacing of this part of the narrative. I do think that it goes more quickly in the show than it does in real life, certainly based on my knowledge of adoption in the UK at least. I don't know about the States. But within the context of the show, I think they've spread it out well. They haven't dragged it on for too long. Every couple of episodes, we've just had a little bit of forward movement. It would be unrealistic if they decided to adopt one day and then three episodes later they have a baby. But I think the pacing is brilliant and it's emotional but not too heavy. We still get a lot of comedy here, but it's also really highlighting the seriousness of the situation and how it affects them emotionally. And I think they've done a really good job with it. So as I said at the beginning, season 10 is a fabulously strong Friends season, and the one with the home study is a really brilliant episode of Friends.